Okay, so the book we're featuring today is called The Chocolate War by Robert Cormier. And let's move on. So, after suffering rejection from major publishers, The Chocolate War made its debut in 1974 and quickly became a best-selling and provocative classic for young adults. This chilling portrait of an all-boys prep school casts an unflinching eye on the pitfalls of conformity and corruption in our most elite cultural institutions. Not going to read all of this because I want to get to the chapter, but here's the plot. It is linked in our first chapter Fridays, the PowerPoint is, so if you want to read more of the background of the story, but I am going to read this part because this is the plot. Behind the scenes at an exclusive prep academy called Trinity, a secret society called the Vigils dominates the students through psychological warfare and systematic victimization. Sociopathic junior Archie Costello, the Vigils' assigner, plans venomous pranks, and the Vigils force students, particularly the most vulnerable, intimidated, approval-seeking ones, to carry them out. Freshman Jerry Reynolds, emotionally bruised after his mother's death, is handed a typical assignment to spend 2 weeks publicly defying Trinity's traditions by refusing to take part in the school's annual chocolate sale. Dangerously unpredictable acting headmaster Brother Leon is livid. He illicitly overextended Trinity's finances to buy twice as many chocolates as the school sold in past years, and he needs the school's unstinting cooperation to sell the candy and protect his job. But after the 2-week prank ends, Jerry still refuses to sell the chocolates, in spite of increasing pressure from his frightened peers, the Vigils, and Brother Leon. The standoff quickly turns into a war between the entire school and one teenager who isn't even sure why he's refusing to go along with the crowd. So here's background on Robert Cormier and other books that he has written. He lived from 1925 to 2000. And then why was this book banned? Because this was a banned book at one point. So a lot of it has to do with brought more challenges for profanity, masturbation, and sexual fantasy, along with segments denigrating to girls. Thought a couple of schools thought it, or school boards and parents thought it was kind of pornographic. So, and then some of them cited bullying as a reason to ban the book. And then, sexual content, offensive language, and violence. And then it was a movie, made into a movie. So here's the movie trailer, and here's, I think, a scene from the movie where Jerry, the main character, is refusing to sell the chocolate. This is from a 1988 movie. So I'm not going to show the movie trailer and the scene, but feel free to watch it on your own time. And then also by this author, I Am the Cheese and Fade. And then there is a sequel called Beyond the Chocolate War. But I don't want to read that. I don't want to hopefully not give spoilers. Oh, but if you do like this book, you may also enjoy The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. It is my favorite book of all time. I'm not even kidding. It's a really, really great book. I adore it, and it was made also into a movie in the 1980s, and it has like an all-star cast. You might recognize some of the cast yourselves, but you probably obviously recognize them from movies they were in later, like Patrick Swayze's in it, before he was in Dirty Dancing, I'm pretty sure. And then Rob Lowe, you might recognize him. So it's a really good movie and also a great book. And then you may also enjoy Whale Talk by Chris Crutcher, Lord of the Flies by William Golding, Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson, which is a book that I also had in my classroom library, so you might have recognized that, Monster by Walter Dean Myers, and Wonder by R.J. Palacio. Lord of the Flies you might have read. I read it in 9th grade, but I was in an advanced class, so I'm not, and I was in the Ashwaubenon School District, so I'm Not sure if you guys were required to read it at any point, but Lord of the Flies is usually a popular book for teaching. It has a group of boys who are stranded on an island and at one point may or may not kill each other or kill one of them. Who knows? You should read it. It's actually quite an interesting book, and it's really it's very psychological in the fact that it kind of makes you question, if you were stranded on an island, how would you react to it? What character would you most identify with? And also looking at a group of young boys and how they probably would react if they were stranded on an island by themselves. So let's get into the first chapter. I think this is an excerpt from the first chapter. It's only a short excerpt, and it is pretty short, but I'm pretty sure it's from the first chapter though. They murdered him. As he turned to take the ball, a dam burst against the side of his head and a hand grenade shattered his stomach. Engulfed by nausea, he pitched toward the grass. His mouth encountered gravel, and he spat frantically, afraid that some of his teeth had been knocked out. Rising to his feet, he saw the field through drifting gauze, but held on until everything settled into place, like a lens focusing, making the world sharp again with edges. The second play called for a pass. Fading back, he picked up a decent block and cocked his arm, searching for a receiver, maybe the tall kid they called the goober. Suddenly he was caught from behind and whirled violently, a toy boat caught in a whirlpool. Landing on his knees, hugging the ball, he urged himself to ignore the pain that gripped his groin, knowing that it was important to betray no signs of distress, remembering the goober's advice. Coach is testing you. Testing. And he's looking for guts. I've got guts, Jerry murmured, getting up by degrees, carefully not to displace any of his bones or snooze. A telephone rang in his ears. Hello, I'm still here. When he moved his lips, he tasted the acid of dirt and grass and gravel. He was aware of other players around him, helmeted and grotesque, creatures from an unknown world. He had never felt so lonely in his life, abandoned, defenseless. On the third play, he was hit simultaneously by three of them. One, his knees, another, his stomach, a third, his head. The helmet no protection at all. His body seemed to telescope into itself, but all the parts didn't fit, and he was stunned by the knowledge that pain isn't just one thing. It is cunning and various, sharp here and sickening there, burning here and clawing there. He clutched himself as he hit the ground. The ball squirted away. His breath went away like the ball. A terrible stillness pervaded him, and then, at the onset of panic, his breath came back again. His lips sprayed wetness, and he was grateful for the sweet, cool air that filled his lungs. But when he tried to get up, his body mutinied against movement. He decided the hell with it. He'd go to sleep right here, right out on the filthy yard line. The hell was trying out for the team. Screw everything. He was going to sleep. He didn't care anymore. Reynolds! Ridiculous. Someone calling his name. Reynolds! The coach's voice scraped like sandpaper against his ears. He opened his eyes, fluttering. I'm all right, he said to nobody in particular. Or to his father, maybe. Or the coach. He was unwilling to abandon this lovely lassitude, but he had to, of course. He was sorry to leave the earth, and he was vaguely curious about how he was going to get up, with both legs smashed and his skull battered in. He was astonished to find himself on his feet, intact, bobbing like one of those toy novelties dangling from car windows, but erect. For Christ's sake, the coach bellowed, his voice juicy with contempt. A spurt of saliva hit Jerry's cheek. Hey, coach, you spit on me, Jerry protested. Stop the spitting, coach. What he said aloud was, I'm all right, coach, because he was a coward about stuff like that. Thinking one thing and saying another, planning one thing and doing another. He had been Peter 1,000 times, and 1,000 cocks had crowed in his lifetime. How tall are you, Reynolds? 5'9", he gasped, still fighting for breath. Weight? 145, he said, looking the coach straight in the eye. Soaking wet, I'll bet, the coach said sourly. What the hell you want to play football for? You need more meat on those bones. What the hell are you trying to play quarterback for? You'd make a better end. Maybe. The coach looked like a old gangster, broken nose, a scar on his cheek like a stitched shoestring. He needed a shave, his stubble like slivers of ice. He growled and swore and was merciless. But a hell of a coach, they said. The coach stared at him now, the dark eyes probing, pondering. Jerry hung in there, trying not to sway, trying not to faint. "All right," the coach said in disgust. "Show up tomorrow, 3 o'clock sharp, or you're through before you start." Inhaling the sweet, sharp apple air through his nostrils, he was afraid to open his mouth wide, wary of any movement that was not absolutely essential. He walked tentatively toward the sidelines, listening to the coach barking at the other guys. Suddenly, he loved that voice. Show up tomorrow. He trudged away from the field, blinking against the afternoon sun, toward the locker room at the gym. His knees were liquid and his body light as air suddenly. Know what? He asked himself. A game he played sometimes? What? I'm going to make the team. Dreamer, dreamer. Not a dream. It's the truth. As Jerry took another deep breath, a pain appeared, distant, small. A radar signal of distress. Bleep, I'm here. Pain. His feet scuffled through crazy cornflake leaves. A strange happiness invaded him. He knew he'd be massacred by the oncoming players, capsized and dumped humiliatingly on the ground. But he'd survived. He'd gotten to his feet. You'd make a better end. Was the coach thinking he might try in that end? Any position as long as he made the team. The bleep grew larger, localized now, between his ribs on the right side. He thought of his mother and how drugged she was at the end, not recognizing anyone, neither Jerry nor his father. The exhilaration of the moment vanished, and he sought it in vain, like seeking ecstasy's memory of an instant after jacking off and encountering only shame and guilt. Nausea began to spread through his stomach, warm and oozy and evil. "Hey," he called weakly, to nobody, nobody there to listen. He managed to make it back to the school. By the time he had sprawled himself on the floor of the lavatory, his head hanging over the lip of the toilet bowl, and the smell of disinfectant stinging his eyeballs, the nausea had passed, and the bleep of pain had faded. Sweat moved like small moist bugs on his forehead. And then, without warning, he vomited. So you can see there a little bit of why they banned the book. Not saying you should ever ban books, but why they gave reasoning to ban the books, because of that couple of lines that were read towards the end might seem a little inappropriate, and some schools and some parents might be like, "Oh no, don't let our children read those books." But it is a very straightforward book and very realistic in that fact that it adds those sort of things. So if you're interested in reading more, it's called The Chocolate War. It probably is available on one of the online sources that I gave you guys that link to a couple of days ago. It's on a couple of the links or a couple of the daily schedule pages. So go back and look those up. It's a document full of online sources for links and such to online sources for books. So it's probably on one of those sites. I wouldn't be surprised because it's an older book. Well, that's the end of first chapter Friday, quote unquote. And I will see you tomorrow with our second read through and annotating of Down at the Dinghy. Have a good day.